And how's it going, Elder Scrolls Nation? It is Skullzi here with the latest and the greatest Bethesda Games Studios news. The bit of news that we're going to be talking about today is brand new breaking Bethesda Games Studios news because literally yesterday, Pete Hines was interviewed by Eurogamer. And oh man, they talked about a whole bunch of awesome and interesting stuff, everything from Fallout 76 to even next-gen gaming consoles, and most importantly and surprisingly, the release date for Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6, which is crazy, especially coming from Pete Hines. Are we sure this is the real Pete Hines here? Is this Shader Gorath playing some kind of trick with all of our hearts? But that's just the amazing thing, is Pete Hines doesn't just say anything. He chooses and watches his words very carefully and crafts a very specific vision with every word that he says. He has a goal with everything he says, so the fact that he's talking about the release date window for Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6 should strike true and give us an idea of what we can expect in the future to come. Now, as always, I'm gonna record my screen, that way you can see that my bullshit capacity meter is always running at 0%. But also, so most importantly, we can go through this information together and I can break it down for you and tell you what it means and what it means for the future of Bethesda Game Studios, Starfield, and the Elder Scrolls 6. Now, there is some pretty good information in this interview, but in my opinion, the biggest piece of information is the talk about Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6's release date. So while I will briefly go through other questions in this interview, the main video will be focusing on Elder Scrolls 6 and Starfield release date talk. But I highly suggest that you read this interview for yourself. I'll put a link down in the description below. There's a lot of awesome talk in here, and we get a lot of good insight into how Bethesda thinks and feels about the community's response to the multiplayer drama about Fallout 76, other Bethesda Softworks games, and what Pete Hines thinks of the future of gaming. Here we go! It is the Eurogamer interview. Thank you, Weird Mario alternate personality of mine, for introducing this. Hopefully you never come back again. Now, first things first, as we've talked about before and as most of you probably know, but for those who don't, I want to clarify it real quick. This interview did indeed happen yesterday, October 8th, 2018, not August 10th, 2018. How we do things here in America and the Western Hemisphere doesn't ring true to the rest of the world, because over there in Europe, they put the date first, and then the month, and then the year. So this did indeed happen yesterday, October 8th, 2018. Now, like I said, this is Eurogamer interviewing Pete Hines. They went through a lot of interesting stuff, but I will only focus on the main Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 talk, but I will briefly here go through the rest of the interview and tell you the information and stuff like that, so you can kind of get a TLDR of this interview if you don't want to read it yourself, which I still think you should. Do it! Reading is good. Take some Mentats. Don't take Mentats. Drugs are bad, but reading's good. Drugs bad, reading good. But what about if you take drugs to do reading better? Man, that's like a weird gray area. Anyway, before I get demonetized, let's move on. So first, they talk about the Bethesda launcher and the Steam drama and why Fallout 76 isn't coming out to Steam. Personally, I don't know what the big issue is. I do kind of understand some people's perspective because Steam does have the Steam achievements, your hours played, so you can see whose gamer EP is bigger, and the in-game messaging and stuff like that. So I kind of get that, and as Pete Hines says in this question down here, he doesn't know or think that the Bethesda launcher, in fact, he says he doesn't think it's ready to handle a game as large as Fallout 76, but upgrading the Bethesda launcher and getting it to be on par or at least close to with what Steam is pretty much, except for obviously it's not going to be Steam, because nothing can be Steam. Essentially, Pete Hines says that the Bethesda launcher should be stable for Fallout 76, and that to why they're not doing it on Steam is because they just rather have everything within their own company. They want games to go directly from them to their customers with no middleman, and Steam is still a middleman. No matter how awesome Steam is, it's still a middleman. And from a business perspective, Bethesda does have the right idea here. I mean, their company is big enough to where they don't really have to use Steam. EA has Origin and stuff like that. People may be asking, well, why can't you just put the game on Steam as an option? Well, it's because they, again, want everyone to go through their launcher, and people will if they want to play Fallout 76. No one is really not going to buy Fallout 76 because it's not on Steam. If they do that, they're on some kind of weird spectrum, and I don't want to talk to them. Go away, leave the room, please. Now let's move on to the next thing. They talk about what the future of Bethesda Game Studios Austin is, and Pete Hines says, I don't know, but I do know that for the foreseeable future, they're going to be doing Fallout 76 post-launch support, maintenance, new content, new features, and all that stuff, and he doesn't know how long that's going to be for. My guess is probably for a while, at least for the next 5 years or so. I think that Bethesda's going to want Fallout 76 to have a 10+ year lifespan, but I don't know if Bethesda Game Studios Austin's entire existence is going to be wrapped up around that. And Pete Hines is denying the game development of some sort of Battlecry Battle Royale game, which is what Battlecry Studios was making before they became Bethesda Game Studios Austin. But of course he's going to deny that. My hypothesis and speculation speculation was that Bethesda Game Studios Austin was indeed in the very early stages of developing a battle royale spy game known as Spy Team, which ZeniMax filed a trademark for recently, but that's all speculation. Let's move on. Eurogamer then asked Pete Hines about the balance between single player and multiplayer, and Pete Hines says something that Bethesda has said before, that they don't force anything into games, especially multiplayer. If any type of minigame doesn't work, they don't put it in the game. If multiplayer doesn't work, they don't put it in the game. But if it feels like a pretty good side thing and like it almost should be part of the game, then they definitely put it in. For instance, not multiplayer related, but related to game implementation, Fallout 4 almost didn't have the entire building mechanic until one guy built something really cool. It was an animated neon Vault Boy sign or something, and then from that point forward, it's been in the game. Even the lock-picking system from Fallout 4 and Skyrim was developed back in Fallout 3, and it was so good it just stuck into the future of the Bethesda Game Studios games. It doesn't mean multiplayer will be in every game, it just means if it can fit into a game, they'll put it in. And obviously Fallout 76, the game was made with multiplayer in mind. Bethesda never made a multiplayer-only game ever. In fact, I don't think they made a single game that even had like split-screen multiplayer. So the fact that people are freaking out about their first multiplayer game, I do understand, but calm down, because here we get into the cool shit. This is what I was talking about right here. Now, they say a lot of stuff here. Pete Hines says that they didn't want people to freak out and think they weren't making single-player games. They have a roadmap of what they're doing, and Fallout 76 was next on that roadmap. But now, after Fallout 76 is Starfield, and then the Elder Scrolls 6. Which I love this roadmap thing, and I hate that people are bitching about it, because if you remember a year or two ago, we didn't even know when the Elder Scrolls 6 was coming out. Even when we had a pretty good idea what Starfield was, we were worried, well, when is Elder Scrolls 6 is gonna come out? Is Fallout 5 coming next? What's going on? So we have a roadmap here. Bethesda's trying to give us some sort of information without messing any of their plans up, so take note of that and kind of like it when we get that kind of stuff. But this is the most important thing right here. He was asked when we can expect Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6 to come out, and Pete Hines says time frame wise it would still be about as long as you'd expect when you look at Fallout 3 to Skyrim to Fallout 4 to Fallout 76. It's going to be those periods of time. That hasn't changed, or at least I don't think it will change from that based on what I know. And oh man, this is really exciting. Now let me tell you exactly what he's doing here. He's giving us definite release date window and when we will see Starfield and when we will see the Elder Scrolls 6, which is pretty much the first exact time Bethesda has told us an actual date type situation. He didn't say the exact date, but again, he did, and let me break this down for you. So if we take the average that it took from all these games to come out one after another, from the time it took Fallout 76 to come out after Fallout 4, from the time it took Fallout 4 to come out after Skyrim, and Skyrim after Fallout 3, and blah 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 blah, we get an average of about 3 to 4 years per game. Meaning after Fallout 76, Pete Hines is saying 3 to 4 years after Fallout 76, we're gonna see Starfield, and then 3 to 4 years after Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6. Now, while this is exciting, it's a bit weird at first because it kind of goes against what the information and everything has been saying thus far, and what I've been saying thus far, and what the community believes mostly as a whole, which is I think Starfield will come out in 2019 and the Elder Scrolls 6 in 2022. But what he's saying here is that Fallout 76 comes out in 2018, which means 3 to 4 years after that is 2021 to 2022 for Starfield. 3 to 4 years after that is 2024 to 2025, guys. What is going on? That's a big change. What I think is happening here, don't worry, don't freak out, is I don't think Pete Hines was talking exactly literal numbers. I think he was giving us a broad range. That way he can be safe and cover his ground in case anything crazy happens, like someone hacks Bethesda, or a Deathclaw spawns in the office, and the Deathclaw immediately eats the hard drive. Who knows? I think he's given himself a window of safety here in case something catastrophic does happen, but I don't think that that is the exact long-range period, and of course, he wants to give us some sort of like leeway for surprise, so that way we can get extra hype. So if we're expecting the games to come out much later and they're announced earlier, that makes Bethesda look better, and that makes us more hyped. So while Pete Hines has definitely given us a release date window for both Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6, I think he's overestimating that time period, but it is awesome to know that it kind of aligns with what the community has been saying about 2019 for Starfield and 2022 for Elder Scrolls 6. And at the same time, it's even more awesome that this is coming from Pete Hines. There's no denying this. He chooses his words carefully, and he's talking about release dates here. Now, the rest of this interview is pretty awesome. They talk about other Bethesda Softworks projects, they talk about what Pete Hines thinks about VR and what it means for the future of gaming and the future of next-gen gaming technology. Like I said, if you want to read the rest of this interview, which I suggest you do, I highly suggest you check the links down in the description below. And as always, I want to know what you have to say about all of this. What do you think about this release date window that Pete Hines just gave us? Let me know down in the comments below, and if your comment wins the internet, it may get featured in a future video. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to stay in the know with Bethesda Game Studios news, next-gen gaming news, and follow me on Twitter for the latest channel updates, rants, random memes and random shit about me. Check out my Twitch channel where I soon will be streaming daily because I have recently reached Twitch affiliate. I'm just waiting to upgrade my hardware before I start streaming. And check out the community Discord. We have a lot of people there chatting about a lot of gaming stuff all the time. It's pretty active and the link is down in the description below for that as well. And if you want to have your hand in providing future content and standing as a warrior by defending the channel from bullshit video takedowns, then subscribe to the community on Patreon where you can earn unique and awesome awards and get behind the scenes access to daily content about the channel. And as always, thank you for watching. Be sure to tune in next time when Pete Hines, for some fucking reason, gives us the definite release date for The Elder Scrolls 9. Thanks, man.
Bye, have a great time.